Hi guys, this is Nu-Trix, the Synth guy, and today I got myself an Odyssey, an Arp Odyssey, for less than $40. Yeah, I know, you're thinking to yourself, why is it not happening to me? You know, I'm never getting these nice sweet deals on getting, a cool synth for less than $100 even. To be honest with you guys, you can all have the same deal because the Arp Odyssey I bought is for my iPad. Now I know, it's not the same thing. Okay, wait a second. One, explaining the synthesis in the Odyssey, which is really cool. I will describe how to use the last window, which is the window for effects and the arpeggiator. Now, you got to know something. The arpeggiator in the Arp Odyssey app is way beyond a normal arpeggiator. It is a step sequencer. It's so powerful. You have three assignable destination of modulation. So you can arpeggiate whatever you want. It could be filter cutoff, resonance, the amount of distortion, whatever you want. So it's really powerful. Now let's get started. You know the company Arp. You might not know them today because they've been closed for a long time, but Arp was one of the main company of synthesizer in the early 70s. And from 72 to 81, they released multiple variation of the Odyssey. You probably know Arp if you saw the movie Close Encounter of the Third Kind. Now in that video, there's a song like da 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 being played at the end, and that is an Arp. And actually one of the guy working at Arp is the one operating the synth. That was not an Odyssey. That was mostly from the bigger model of Arp, if I'm not mistaken, the 2500. So in 1972, the first Odyssey came out. It was the one we called the white face. There was a very thin sounding filter compared to what came from other companies like Moog. And rapidly, after a couple of years, they came out with another version. And the panel changed to the black and gold letters on it. So black and gold was the revision 2, and revision 2 added a 4-pole filter. So more like a Moog, up to a point that they had to redesign it because it was too close to a Moog design. So there's two versions of revision 2. Actually, there's more than that, but let's say there's two main differences between revision 2. And then there's the third revision, which is the one with the orange and black panel. Of course, every time they enhanced things, they had a more stable machine. The filter is one of the things that changed the most in the sounding of the device. So today, when you buy these reissued version, these virtual emulation of the Odyssey, the one you will find the most is the black and orange, because that was the last one, that was the most stable one. So that's the one that people really would like to have, outside of the one that sounded like a Moog but was not made for a very long time. Now, it's the same algorithm in the iPad as in the virtual analog in the hardware. Of course, not as the real analog, but for the virtual version, either the hardware one or the iPad, or even it exists now into the computer as a plugin, it's the same algorithm. So I find it really cool to get that sound in an iPad. Now, I won't even go into doesn't sound like the same. I don't have a real Arp Odyssey to test it with. And even if I had, I don't expect two synths to sound the same. The way I see it is, if the Odyssey can sound good and give me the power for me to create sound, it's a cool synth, even if it does not faithfully reproduce the original one. So I see it like another member of the family that sounds with the same type of features that maybe doesn't sound the same. I don't know. I never heard the real one. I don't have one by hand to test and check it out, But it sounds good, and it gives me the power I want, and I'll show you. The arpeggiator is killer. So this is the main page, basically the synthesis page. You've got the panel of the original. Odyssey is here, separated section, and you've got the keyboard you can bring up and play with. You also have the Chaos style pads. You can use In this case for pitch, in this case this is for the filter cutoff, and then you can assign to other things if you want to. You can buy new banks of sound, and by buying the banks of sound you can actually go in and load different screens. So this is the default graphic, the orange and black face, which is linked to the revision 3, which was the last one to came out. You also, if you buy the other banks, revision 1 bank, you have then the white face panel to play with. Or you can also buy the revision 2, and then you've got the revision 2 black and gold panel. They don't change the sound because it's just a cosmetic change, so it looks differently. You might like this one because you like the color, whatever it is. The real difference in the sound from the original would be in the VCF. There's a VCF type. You can switch between the 3 modes, and you can go from mode 1, 2, and 3 to a different type of VCF. And they are linked to the original sounding of the VCF. Now, let's go more in detail for each of these sections. You have in this section here, the first one, there is basically a section of voice and control over the voice. You can choose between mono, legato, duo, which was a synth that was duophonic at the time, and you got poly. Now, poly is something that exists only in the virtual synthesizer, and you can play up to 8 voices. You can then decide that you're going to spread them, so they're spread from left to right, so it gives you a wider sound, and you can decide if they're going to be detuned. Then you've got choices over the way you transpose up and down, and the portamento, and different things here for the pitch control. The second section is for the frequency. So basically the VCO, you've got the first one, voltage control oscillator 1, and you get voltage control oscillator 2. Now, both of them always generates a sawtooth and a square wave. And you get different, well, here you've got the coarse, so the tuning and the fine tuning for the 2 of them. This one also can use the keyboard or not, so the keyboard can be turned off if you want. And you've got sync on off, so the second one can be synced to the first one. Now, if you know about sync, it basically you'll use this one, will be re-triggered even if it's out of tune, so it sounds in tune with the first one. So a very classic type of sound you can use for this. Now, at the bottom of each of them, you've got different controls. Basically, frequency modulation. You can decide where it comes from an LFO, how much of it you want to send. LFO can be 2 shapes, the sine wave or the square wave, and you've got also sample and hold and the ADSR. So if you want to use the envelope, you can also use the envelope to control how much FM you send to this one. Then you've got the pulse width modulation, so how much of it you want, and also actually you've got the pulse width, the size of it, and then how much you want it to move from the LFO coming in, or for the ADSR, or from the ADSR. So again, choice over the source of modulation and the amount of modulation. So really powerful right away here, and the 2 sources. So the 2 can be combined. Then you go into the LFO section. So you've got the LFO speed here. You have the fact that it's synced to tempo or synced to the key. So if every time you press a key, will you re-trigger the LFO, so it's always at the same place in the movement. Then at the bottom here, you've got 2 things. You've got the sample and hold mixers. You can send different sources into the mixer, and it will sample and hold these. And you can use that later on as a different section, like here, sample and hold, or sample and hold. So it's another type of weird modulation you can create here. This is pretty cool. Then you get into the filter. You've got a frequency and resonance. Second one and the third one. So this third one is more resonant. The second one is 24 dB per octave, and the first one is a 12 dB per octave. You also have an high pass filter here. You can have a low pass and an high pass at the same time, and both of them go from 16 Hertz to 16 kilohertz. You also have a drive gain, so you can distort inside the machine before getting outside. Really interesting. For the audio signal path at the bottom here, you got audio signal. You want this to be sent into the filter. Comes out of filter, goes into the I-pass filter, and then being amplified. So if you go, all these little arrows are really easy to follow. You've got the noise, how much noise you want to send. I'm going to open the filter. Okay. You've got oscillator 1, oscillator 2, no sound, just the 1, 2. 2 of them, okay? And you can switch between the shape. You want to have square or sawtooth. And you also have, this is the voltage control for the filter, how much you want to control the filter from the keyboard, from the sample and hold, from the LFO, from the ADSR. So if you want the filter to open up and clean, there you go, you got ADSR. And that's your shape here. You can switch between ADSR or AR. AR is this one, so it's just attack release or attack decay sustain release. And everywhere in the machine you can say ADSR, 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 ADSR. Then you got AR or ADSR, and for the volume, AR or ADSR. So you can decide which one, like this one can be just the volume if you want, you know. Okay. And the last part is the envelope. Now, there's something wicked about the envelope is you've got here an LFO repeat for the ADSR and LFO repeat for the AR. If I go repeat here and I play, it re-triggers the envelope every time the LFO does its movement. So it re-triggers this here. If I play again, and I could do the same for the ADSR. So it's really cool because it becomes kind of an arpeggiator right away. You're basically just looping the envelope, or looping this envelope, with the speed of the LFO that is here. So this becomes kind of a, you know, if it's synced to tempo, it becomes really, the notes are like an arpeggiator. Really cool. And that is just synthesis. You have the arpeggiator at the top, and you've got effects at the bottom. Like you've got distortion, you've got phaser. Put your headphones on this one. This really cool kind of vintage sound of a, same thing with a flanger, of course. It just sounds really nice. All the EQ if you want to clean it up. The delay also. Really nice. It sounds round and clean. And you've got reverb also if you need that. Okay, let's go back into the arpeggiator now, and you've got two sections, notes and parameters. Let's put on for notes, go semitone or octave, and just gonna go, I'm just gonna play around and turn it on. So I'm just playing with the octave, and go semitone, and I'm gonna play this one, this one, this one, this one, I don't know. Go gate, tie some notes, and kill some others. So these are zeros, so there's a gate from 0 to 100, and then tie notes. And you see when you move it, you see it on the screen, so it's really easy to follow. So I'm going to kill them off. Now I'm going to go into also turn on the parameters, and I'm going to use this for controlling, I don't know, the filter cutoff. Okay, and close it here and opening up. And I'm going to add some distortion movement in it for the tone, as well for the tone. Let's try another one. Let's try just drive. Not enough. Let's play with the fader then. Cool. Sounds really nice. And let's try into something else here. Let's go for, I don't know. So you just can build up. Let's say I'm going to put it on latch. So it plays by itself. Then I'm going to go here. I'm going to play around with, this is forward, backward. It's going the other way. Odd. It only plays the odd, like 1, 3, and listen, you get a new rhythm. Just the even, so 2, 4, 6, and so on. And 3. 3 is interesting. 3 will jump 2. We'll play the 1, jump 2, and then play, jump 2, and then play, jump 2, and so you're kind of recreating the rhythm right away. The original one is. And you have, of course, random. And then goes. You can bring the speed down. And you can also go chords instead. That's it. When I say this thing is massively powerful, is you can really have a lot of things change in your sound. And one thing I didn't say, you've got the glide function. So if you want to have these movement smoother, you can actually glide between these values and have really a nice movement in the sound. So really, really interesting, really powerful. For me, I see this as more of a step sequencer than an arpeggiator, because it's really, really, really powerful. So cool thing, cool synth. So that's it. That was my walkthrough of the Arp Odyssey by Korg, and I hope you really enjoyed this. If you like it, give me a thumb up. If you want to follow me on my blog on Nu-Trix.com, just follow me everywhere I am on the internet, on Facebook, on my website. Write me suggestion of stuff I can talk about, another iPad's app or other type of synth I can test out. In the next video, just after this one, I will just do sounds, and we'll just listen to the sound of the factories and the other sound.